told you I grew up on the North Shore out in Setauket, but we don't live there anymore. I live in Valley Stream, right on the edge of Queens. But we have a creek. We live right on a nature preserve. So we have a creek that runs through our backyard, and there are always ducks and Canadian geese and all sorts of wildlife back there. And the ducks are really interesting because, you know, there are mallards, and the mallards fly. And the mallards, we watch the mallards fly away. But there are also these white ducks, the Peking ducks, the ones that we think of as the Long Island ducks. And they never fly. They don't fly. They just kind of hang around. So this is a story about a white Peking duck. So it was a while ago, some eggs were hatched from a white duck. And there were about 6 of them. One of them was very small, very cute little duckling. Oh, he was so cute. And he really didn't mind being small, because when he was little, they would go swim in the pond, and kids would come and they'd bring bread for the ducks, and they'd look at that little tiny duckling and they'd say, oh, he's so cute, he's so cute. And the little duckling just thought, well, this is the greatest thing ever. He just loved it. He really didn't mind being different. And, you know, and so life went on, and he got a little bigger, and he started to notice the way things were around where he lived. And he noticed that the mallards, well, they flew, and they would fly away. But his family and the other Peking ducks, they didn't fly at all. And he wanted to fly, and he said, Mom, I want to fly. I'm going to fly. And she said, honey, we don't fly. We don't fly. And he said, oh, well, I'm going to fly. I'm going to be the different one. And so what he did was he would sneak away. And I don't know why. Maybe it was because he was little. Maybe because he was a little special. But he practiced. And son of a gun, he started to fly. He got himself off, and he started to fly. And he'd fly just a little bit, and then he'd fly a little more. And as he flew, well, he got stronger. He got stronger. He started to build some great big wings. And of course he got bigger, because babies get bigger. So he started to grow up, and he started to get bigger, and he'd work out by flying, and he'd work out and he'd fly, and he got to be a great big duck. He was really big. He was one big duck. And he thought, well, his head got kind of big too. He got really cocky. And he would go get some bread from people who bring the bread, you know, and instead of just coming up the way all the other ducks came, no, what cute little ducks. No, this duck, he'd fly in, and he'd screech down into the water, and he'd come over like this, and the kids with the bread would just go, ah, and they'd run away, and he'd eat that bread. Yeah, he was big. He was a really big duck. And he'd practice some more, and he'd just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, and dogs weren't afraid of him. The dogs would bark, and he'd go quack, quack, and the dogs would go whoa, and they'd run away. He'd even go to the duck farms. You know, the duck farms, he'd go right by the big duck farmers, and the duck farmer would try to catch him, and this duck would go, and he'd fly away, fly up in the eye, up into the sky. The duck farmers would shake their fists at him. Yeah, one day he said, you know what, I need a good workout. I'm not getting enough workout here. I think I'm going to fly right down to Florida. Yeah, I'm going to fly down to Florida. I mean, none of you can come because you don't fly. But I'm going to fly down to Florida. Yeah, that's what I need to do. Well, then the weather started to change. And it was about this time of year. You know, this time of year where the weather's really kind of weird. And they were expecting rain, and he thought, that big duck, he thought, you know what, I'm going to go fly in that rainstorm. I think a little rain is going to help me out, help me bulk up a little bit, you know, I'd fight against the rain, I can do that. And the other duck said, you know, you really, you should not go out in that rainstorm. And he said, I can do it, I have no problem with that. And he started flying up into the clouds. But what he didn't know is that this wasn't an ordinary rainstorm. In fact, it wasn't a rainstorm at all. It was a hailstorm. And do you know what happens with hail? Do you know what happens with hail? Hail is like little bits of ice. Little bits of ice. And ice is much heavier than rain. So he got up there, and this hail started to get on his wings. And he was pushing against that hail. And he said, oh, this is great. This is making me even stronger. And he got stronger and he got bigger right then. He just got bigger and bigger and more hail came and it started working against his wings and he fought and he got bigger and bigger and bigger. But then it came time and that ice got to be too much. And he froze. And he fell. He fell down from the sky till he landed out in a field in Flanders, right here on Long Island. And that great big duck is here to this very day with a frozen look on his face like this. Well, you know, I think there's some other story about that big duck, something about somebody wanted to sell eggs or something like that, and so he built this duck, but I just don't believe that. No, this is a much better story.